Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to set up the adapter that we're going to require in order to display this information into our recycler view. You see here, we want to display the database entries onto our recycler view. Therefore, we need to set up an adapter and of course the recycler view as well, and then assign that adapter to the recycler view in the main activity where we display this. So what we will need, however, is something slightly differently to what we have built so far. So in the recycler views that we used so far, we didn't pass listeners to the adapter itself, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So for example, I have this listener that listens or waits for me to click on this update button or on this delete button. So let's go ahead and implement that. In this video, we're going to focus on the adapter itself to then display stuff, and then later we can see how we can add, delete and add it. So let's get back to our project and let's go ahead and create a new adapter, which I'm going to call ItemAdapter. So this will be the adapter class that will take care of individual items. And this one will accordingly, of course, inherit from the recycler view adapter class. And here we need to pass in the view holder. And I'm going to have a view holder inside of the ItemAdapter, so a custom view holder inner class that we're creating, but it's not going to be an inner class as such. It's just going to be a class that is inside of this class. So I'm going to call this a view holder, which is going to require a binding, which we can get from the items row binding type, or which will be of type items row binding. Okay, and why items row binding? Well, because that's how we called our XML file. It's called items row XML. So that's why the binding is called items row binding. Okay, so we're just saying, okay, we want to have the XML that we prepared there to be used. So this items row XML. Okay, now this of course will be of type recycler view holder. Okay, we need to use the view holder and we need to pass in the root, which if you hold control and click on it is going to be this items row XML parent view or layout, which is this linear layout in my case, which I called LL main. So now I want to have access to all of the items inside of it, which means all of the views, the text views and the image views. Therefore, what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to set them up. Also, by the way, also the main view or the main layout, which is the linear layout. So we get that via LL main because that's the name of the linear layout, the ID LL main. Okay, now we need to do the same thing with the other items. So with our text views and our image views. So text view email, name, edit, and delete, we get them via view binding. Okay, so now we can use this view holder here. So we're going to use our ItemAdapter view holder, which is this class that we created ourselves, this one here. Then we need to add the brackets here. And of course, what's really important is we need now to pass in the list that we want to use. And in our case, of course, it's an array list. So let's go ahead and pass it, private val items, which is going to be an array list of our employee entity, because our employee entity is our model, which we are also using for our database. Okay, so now our ItemAdapter, of course, needs to have the members. So it needs to have those three members on create view holder, on bind view holder, and get item count. So let's auto add them. But what I'm also going to add here, and this is the thing that I was talking about that is new that we haven't done before, is I'm going to add an update listener, which is just going to wait for us to click on the update button. And I'm going to add a delete listener, which is just going to wait for us to click on the delete button. Okay, so that's how it's done. We're just saying, okay, the update listener is going to be of this type, which is a lambda expression that we're using here. We're passing an ID and we get the unit. Okay, so now let's implement those. The easiest one is going to be get item count, and this one will just be our items.list or size better said, and we need to return that. So item size will return an integer, which is what we need to return here. So now what should happen once we create our view holder? Well, usually we just return the view holder, okay? So let's return a view holder object here, which now requires our binding object. And in order to create the binding object, we use our items row binding inflate with the layout inflator, but because we are inside of a different context and not inside of the context of an activity, we need to use the following approach where we get the context from the parent. Okay, and then we pass the parent as well as whether we want to attach it to root. So it's going to look like this. We get the parent view group, which is passed to us when we create the view holder. Okay, so once it's created, we return the view holder, which will return an object of this class. And now we can use that view holder and bind its individual items. So what I want to do here is I want to have a context, otherwise I can't do some of the magic. So holder.itemView context. So we get the context from the holder itself, which has an ItemView property, and then the context. So here we get the context, and now we need to get the individual item. And we get that from our items list that is passed to this adapter. And we need to say at which position we want to have it, because the item will be the individual item of our items list, which is going to be just an employee entity item. Okay, so this item will be an employee entity object. So now what else do we want to do? Because now we need to assign the text view, this text view, and we need to make sure that those buttons are going to work. And also you can see, if you look at it, the color changes. Okay, so the background color is changing so that we have this effect, which is a good approach. So first of all, let's make sure that we get access to the text view name text, and we pass the item name. So the name, if you look at it, is this name. So this is employee entity object. Our item is of type employee object, or employee entity to be more precise. So we get its name property and assign it to the text view name text property. And then we need to do the same thing with the email. And here we just get item.email. And then we add the color background thingy, okay? Therefore, I needed to have this LL main here, okay? So that I can change the background of the linear layout item. So here, if position is modulo 2, so every second object, so to speak, I'm going to change the background color. So set background color of my linear layout. And here I'm just going to use context compat get color to then get the color to our holder. So here we need to pass in the context so that we can change the color. So here we get the context, and then we set the color itself. So r.color dot, and do we have color light gray? I think we don't. Let's set that up, color light gray. Okay, so I'm going to set this color up in my colors XML file. So let's create a color resource under colors. Color name will be light gray, which is going to be this color here. So EB. Okay, which is quite close to a white, but it's not exactly white, as you see here. It's just a little bit gray. And now let's see if we can use it. Actually, did I call it color light gray? I think I call it light gray. Let me see, light gray. So let's use the same name inside of the colors XML file. And now we should be good to go. Okay, so every second item is going to be gray now, and the other items are going to be whatever is the default, which is white. Even though we can also manually set that. So let's do that real quick. So here, let me set that color to be the white color. And let me add a white color as well. And actually we just called it white. So let's use this white color here. And now in here, we can set the on-click items. Okay, once we click on one of those items here, either this one or that one, we need to handle that in the onBind view holder as well, which the problem is that this item adapter doesn't inherit or doesn't implement the onClick listeners, which is why we need to pass the onClick listeners. So the update listener as well as the delete listener. So now let's use those. Let's use holder.IvEdit. So once we click on the image view edit button or image view, we want to set an onClick listener to it. And here I'm going to use the update listener to invoke something with the item ID. So we're invoking the update listener, which means we are doing a click, so to speak, and we're passing the ID. This will make a lot more sense once we get over to the main activity where we are also going to actually use this. So now we need to do the same thing with the delete listener. So let's do that. IV delete, and this one will be the delete listener. So we invoke again with the item because we need to know which item was clicked, and we get that from the item that we're currently at. Because if you look at it, we have this button multiple times, right? We have this button here, we have this here, we have this here, and we have this here. So even though it's an image view, but it behaves like a button. So each time we click on it, it needs to know which of the items we clicked it on. So did we click it on the Dennis one? Did we click the edit button on the Frank one, on the Mike one, and so forth? It needs to know this, and it gets it inside of the onBind view holder because there it knows which button was clicked. So here we can say, okay, the current item that we are in, for that, the update listener was clicked. And let's invoke it. So let's call the update listener, which we then, of course, will need to implement in the main activity to be clickable. So we're going to get those through creating the item adapter inside of our main activity. Okay, so unfortunately there's not much to see yet in this video, but I believe it really makes sense to have a break here because otherwise this video would be way too long. So in the next video we're going to then finally display everything because we prepared our item adapter. Now let's go ahead and assign it to the recycler view in our main activity, which if we look at it is this one down here. There's this recycler view, this one. And now we need to assign our item adapter to it and pass the list of items that we want to display, which is going to be something that we get from the database. Okay, so that's it for this video. See you in the next one.